I'd like you to use your imagination for a moment. Think back to when you're having a conversation with someone that you respect and they're in a position of authority. Now, during the conversation, this person says to you, coming up to certain points, and they go, "Remember. I want you to remember this." Well, this is what Jehovah's done for us in this symposium. When somebody says remember, then most people will stop and they refocus and concentrate even more. So what does Jehovah want us to remember with this specific part? Well, many people that are not religious can acquire faith. And you think about every year, there's people that were atheists, agnostics, that have come into the truth. So the lesson in this part is do not hold back from witnessing to people that are non-religious. You don't want to take the position as if we're the judge of this. Oh, they wouldn't be interested. They're atheists, they're agnostic, they're wrapped up with materialism. That's not our position to take. We want to be individuals that Jehovah will use to try to help these non-religious individuals.
We've gone from one cringeworthy introduction, Ralph Walls with his mule, to another cringeworthy and perplexing introduction. Tony Morris here coming up with this elaborate illustration just to drive home the point that people should remember what he's saying.
When somebody says remember, then most people will stop and they refocus and concentrate even more. So what does Jehovah want us to remember with this specific part? Well, many people that are not religious can acquire faith.
He could have easily just said that to begin with. He could have easily just said, many people that are not religious can acquire faith. But he has to waste our time with this convoluted introduction about a person in authority. Apparently, you would only remember what someone says if it's a person in authority. Well, I don't relate to that. But why do you need such a long build-up? Weird. This apparently is the apex, the pinnacle of teaching in Jehovah's organization. We have here a governing body member, and this is the level of teaching at the top of the organization. If I'd started with that sort of introduction back in Theocratic Ministry School, I like to think I would have not got a G, I would have got a W for work on, I think. But anyway, Anthony Morris, here giving the talk, People Can Acquire Faith, Non-Religious People. And as we've heard the entire message of his talk, which we all need to remember, is that even atheists, even agnostics, even non-religious people can be converted to Jehovah's Witnesses.
Notice the point here. When it comes to nature, a lot of people, they might even be atheists or agnostics, but they love nature. So using that as a basis to have a conversation is the course of wisdom. You might say something like, you probably know that many inventions come about when scientists copied things that already existed in nature. For instance, microphone designers study ears, and camera designers study eyes. Now, what comes to your mind when you think of nature? Do you think that it is a marvelous force, a person, or something else? Now listen attentively when you ask questions like that. See? And then add, maybe, when engineers learn from the design of ears and eyes, we might wonder whom they are learning from. I was intrigued by something an ancient poet said. Now, this is wise because the poet is the psalmist. See, from Psalm 94, 9, 10, but you could say ancient poet, that's appropriate. And here's the quote. The one who made the ear, can he not hear? The one who formed the eye, can he not see? He is the one who imparts knowledge to people. Isn't that beautiful? Good questions to ask and discuss with non-religious people. And then we have the marvelous website, jw.org. We've got the viewpoints on the origin of life, number of videos that can help them. Now, at the same time, we want to have compassion, empathy, try to reach their heart. And there were some key points, just to pass them on to you. You want to keep in mind giving a witness to non-religious people. Be positive. See, keep in mind, every year there's non-religious people that have become Jehovah's Witnesses. This is important. Be kind and tactful. See? Because people will listen not just because of what we say, but how we say it. See, if you're going to reach a heart, speak from the heart. So be kind and tactful and imitate Jesus in the way he witnessed. Such compassion and love was always evident.
Yes, apparently Tony is an authority when it comes to speaking kindly and tactfully and with love and compassion. That's what he's all about. He's not the sort of person who would relish the destruction of everyone who doesn't acknowledge his authority, to the point of giving a morning worship speech where he blows a match out gleefully, imagining that to be the annihilation of all non-believers, all non-Jehovah's Witnesses. No, he'd never do anything like that. He's really kind and tactful and loving and compassionate towards people who don't see things his way. I mean, really, what a monstrous hypocrite this man is. He's just able to say anything, apparently, even if what he's saying completely contradicts everything that he stands for. I mean, anyone who watches my Taking on Tony series will know that this man is arguably the least kind, least tactful, least loving, and least compassionate member of the governing body. And, you know, that's saying a lot. We're talking about a group of men who care so little for children that they're willing to put them in harm's way through their policies, through having this secret database that they keep of predators that they're not passing on to the authorities. Deeply, deeply unloving group of 8 dudes. And he is far and away the most vindictive, mean-spirited, arrogant, pompous, sneering individual in this already unpleasant group of characters. And here he is talking about, oh, we need to be kind and loving and compassionate. Do as I say, not as I do, is effectively what he's saying here. I think we can all agree. But apart from all that, I hope you noticed this man's completely woeful and inept attempts at Christian apologetics. Again, we're talking about the top of the leadership pyramid when it comes to Jehovah's organization. This is a man who fancies himself as 1/8 of God's faithful slave, a mouthpiece for God. God is the greatest communicator. We've learned that from Stephen Lett in the past. And as the greatest communicator, God is choosing Tony Morris to tell Jehovah's Witnesses how to preach to non-religious people. And apparently the way they're supposed to do it is to point to nature and argue that, oh, scientists and engineers often draw inspiration for their discoveries and inventions from the natural world. Wow. Therefore, there must be a God. Therefore, this God must be a theist God rather than simply a deist God. Therefore, this theist God must be the God of the Bible. Therefore, this God of the Bible must be Jehovah. Therefore, Jehovah must have invisibly chosen the faithful slave in 1919. I mean, come on. You've barely cleared the first hurdle with that argument. You don't get to the Jehovah's Witness religion is the one true faith purely by arguing that scientists and engineers mimic nature. And am I the only one who's detecting a bit of slurring there in Tony's talk? Obviously, he gave the dramatic Bible reading on the Friday afternoon, This was obviously something where he was recorded sitting down and he was doing his story time with Uncle Tony about Noah's flood and about rape and about people drowning because they weren't in the ark. It was really age-appropriate stuff, as you can imagine. And he seemed a little bit more in control there. But here, for me at least, and I'd be interested in seeing your comments below, for me, he seems, again, his typical incoherent, slurring self. There isn't really a good flow to what he's saying. It's very jittery. There's no real smooth progression. He's just all over the place, really, in his delivery, shaking a little bit as well, which could be age or could be any number of things, I realize. But for me, I don't know. I think he might have had some whiskey in his cornflakes before this talk. And if you're watching my channel for the first time and you have no clue what I'm talking about, please search for Bottlegate in the YouTube search bar and all will be revealed.
And then, at this point, be understanding and listen. See, that's so crucial to remember to listen. Sometimes, and sincere witnesses do it, we talk too much. We ask a question, and they have 2 seconds to answer, and next thing we're talking already. But you have to listen. People are not being listened to today. Don't let that be us, see. Be understanding and listen to them. Let them express themselves. So you show you have empathy and love for them. So keep these thoughts in mind, and Jehovah will bless your efforts. In fact, in the following video, notice what has attracted non-religious people to the truth.
My family were non-practicing Catholics, so I was never taught to believe in God. I trusted my teachers more than anyone else. So I accepted and loved the theory of evolution. When I was 19, a childhood friend who had become one of Jehovah's Witnesses started to call on me. I liked talking to him, but when he spoke to me about God, I told him, please stop talking about God because I don't believe in him. He never gave up on me. He asked, why won't you, just for a moment, entertain a conversation about God? This question made me think. I had rejected his arguments without even listening to them. I didn't want to give the impression of being arrogant or stubborn. So I thought, why not let him speak? He used a book, Life. How did it get here? By evolution or by creation? It was as if a veil had been lifted from my eyes. That was the moment Jehovah introduced himself to me. Finally, I understood that my life has a purpose. I regret that I didn't know Jehovah for the first 20 years of my life. My relationship with Jehovah is without doubt the most precious thing I have. I am determined to witness about Jehovah to everyone I meet, especially to those without faith, so that they too can appreciate the wonderful qualities of our Creator.
Yes, non-religious people are accepting the truth. See, they can acquire faith.
Yes, they can acquire faith if you badger them and harass them and never give up trying to convert them.
When he spoke to me about God, I told him, please stop talking about God because I don't believe in him. He never gave up on me.
This is the message Jehovah's Witnesses are going to take from this video. Never give up. Keep badgering people even after they tell you, I'm not interested, I'm not religious, I don't want to have a conversation about this. You need to carry on pestering them and harassing them and ambushing them with attempts to convert them into your faith. I also find it particularly grating that they show towards the end of this testimonial this strategy that Jehovah's Witnesses have and are apparently being encouraged to pursue of finding people on university campuses, essentially picketing campuses and university facilities, exploiting the fact that people are there to learn, and presenting your pseudoscience and your creationist claptrap as though this too somehow has level pegging with what's being taught inside the university.
I am determined to witness about Jehovah to everyone I meet, especially to those without faith, so that they too can appreciate the wonderful qualities of our Creator.
They do this outside the Natural History Museum in London. I've seen them. Obviously, I don't think they're doing cart witnessing at the moment due to the pandemic. But imagine that. Imagine setting up a cart with creationist propaganda outside the Natural History Museum, which, if you've been inside, is laden with proof that life evolves. You're walking through millions, if not billions of years of Earth's history, and you're seeing clear examples of the fact that this planet was not made with humans in mind, that nature is cruel and ruthless, and that life and all living organisms are a work in process, that evolution is real and it's all around us and it's ongoing. But Jehovah's Witnesses, again, effectively picket this place and say, oh, no, we've got the real answer. All you need to do is read our creationist propaganda, an example of which can be seen here. I don't know whether they have this book on their carts. Probably they don't. Oh dear. But in any case, this is Life, How Did It Get Here by Evolution or by Creation. There's my copy, 1985. And this is the book, apparently, that Tommaso was so impressed with. This apparently is brimming with slam dunk evidence that evolution is just one massive conspiracy, that the overwhelming consensus of scientists are trying to dupe people, are involved in some kind of plot to try to convince people of something that isn't real. All of the evidence is apparently here. There's just one small problem. It isn't. This book has been completely and thoroughly debunked. In fact, it's even included, I think there are a few pages debunking the arguments in this book in The God Delusion by Richard Dawkins. That's one example. Another example is a thesis that was written by an ex-JW named Alan Feuerbacher. I keep noticing Alan, by the way, popping up in the comments to these videos. So it's nice to see Alan still in circulation. Anyway, I'll put a link to his thesis in the description below. He wrote this thesis called, I think it's called Part 1, Disagreements About Evolution. In any case, he goes through painstakingly the examples of misquotes that this book is brimming with. And one example, I'll just give you one example from the first few pages. If you turn to page 9, the book's barely begun. Look, there's page 9. The book's barely begun, and it quotes Charles Darwin on page 9. It says, in his conclusion to The Origin of Species, he, that's Charles Darwin, wrote of the grandeur of the view of life with its several powers having been originally breathed by the Creator into a few forms or into one. End of quote. Thus making it evident that the subject of origins was open to further examination. So that's their quote from Charles Darwin on evolution. What does the full quote say? Alan Feuerbacher has gone to the trouble of looking it up in his thesis. The full quote reads, there is grandeur in this view of life with its several powers having been originally breathed by the Creator into a few forms or into one, and that whilst this planet has gone cycling on according to the fixed law of gravity, from so simple a beginning, endless forms most beautiful and most wonderful have been and are being evolved. Well, it didn't suit the writers of this book to include the full quote, did it? They weren't really interested in giving the reader the full picture. They weren't really interested in sharing Charles Darwin's views in context so that we can get the full perspective. They chop him off. They denude his words of context to make it sound like it's all somehow up in the air. And he was personally fine with having his entire work dismantled by charlatans, frankly, like the Watchtower Society, decades or centuries later. This is the sort of trickery they use. These are the sorts of misquotes that you'll find throughout this book. And again, I've just read you one. There are many, many more that you can research for yourself in your own time if you are so inclined. But as I've said before, what does this tell us about the Jehovah's Witness religion if they need to do this to get their ideas across? If they have to misquote scientists, if they have to misquote Charles Darwin in order to sell their creationist propaganda, what does it say about their honesty, about how truthful and sincere they are? If this is really the truth, there should be zero misquotes. There should be zero trickery, zero attempts at deception. They should just present the information and let people reach their own conclusions. They're not going to do that because they're in the business of manipulating people.